Still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break.
What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taking on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the three Amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend. And it's good evening to Mitch, Steve, George, and to you. Joe will be joining us at 6 o'clock and all of your usual favourites tonight. But George, you'd like to dedicate this show to somebody tonight?
Yeah, to my former secretary of over 25 years, Liz Baker, who I couldn't have done my job without. She was great. And although she was an administrator, she taught us all really how to put students first. And that helped us get lots of students in. For example, we used to look for 60 students a year in our department. Several times we got over 100, and that was more because of the clever letters Liz used to write to them when they were admitting. So, and I know our two sons, Callum and James, and husband Kevin, are supporters of NUFC Matters. So I just wanted to say publicly how sorry I am what took place last night, and wish me best to them. You know, couldn't be better.
Yeah. Our thoughts with the family, and hope everyone is okay. It's such a sad time. Okay, we will move on, and I do want to read an email. As you know, over the last couple of weeks, I've set that up there, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com, and it's got a few of you thinking. It's got a few of you sending us messages, which is really, really nice. And of course, sending your first games, which we always have now on a Friday. So thank you for doing that. Thanks to those as well who send me a few things from the newspapers, maybe that I've missed out on. You know who you are. John Askew, long time comment in the chat. He's put this up, and it's nice of him to do so. It was a bit weird, to be honest, he says. It was April 2020. I just got in from work. I'm a technophobe, but I'd recently mastered WhatsApp. And when checking our little group, it was clear my favourite football club was going to be taken over by a group with emphasis on Saudi Arabia. For a magpie with around 5 decades of experience, this was exciting news, multiplied by 1,000. I knew they were the best possible owners of our club. They don't do second best, and we'll be in it for the money. All we wanted was hope, but we were in line for something far more substantial than that. So we all sat back and looked forward to the natural transition from Mr. Ashley to our great brand new consortium of owners. Oh dear. It was around this time that I'd recently worked out how to access and use YouTube on my telly, and I stumbled across something called NUFC Matters. For a number of reasons, I was attracted to the name and managed to tune in and was pretty impressed with the associated discussions. Of course, the main topic at the time had to be the impending takeover, and I was grateful for the insight and contributions from many of those featured, most of whom were supporters of Newcastle United. Of particular interest at the time were the perspectives of the likes of Steve Wraith, Mitch, Steve Hasty, and it was great to have Al Walid along for the ride as he was actually based in Saudi. There were, of course, many other significant contributors on various shows which were very important. At this point, it's worth pointing out that the tune had played a huge part in my life since 1973, and if I add that I probably didn't have a choice, you'll know what I'm on about. It wasn't going to be any other way, for better or for worse. It was actually for worse. So the takeover was massive, and not just because of the previous 14 years. It was our passport to success, and a club that actually deserved the magnificent support it attracted regardless of the weather. And then the sorry saga began. It soon became clear that the takeover was a bit more difficult than we'd anticipated, and we didn't really know why. The average length of time for getting the green light was around 8 weeks, and I believe the alarm bells were ringing before this time was reached. I knew the takeover was our only real hope of driving our club forward and was pretty desperate for a successful conclusion. And this is where NUFC Matters comes into its own for me. It was clear that the dark forces were at work trying to scupper the deal, and not just because the secret breakaway Super League was being negotiated behind everyone's back. There was also the prospect of Tyneside juggernaut travelling the country and upsetting the balance of the so-called top six. Why would anyone want a thing? So weeks went by and nothing really changed, and it was reckoned that the EPL were basically engaging in delaying tactics to hack the Saudis off and wreck the deal. I was on holiday in the lakes in late July when my nephew informed me in a pub car park that the takeover was off and the Saudis had basically walked away. I wasn't surprised, but I was gutted. And so to why I'm typing this. I kept tuning in to NUFC Matters for the various discussions, and please bear in mind I was hanging on to anything to give me hope that the takeover could be resurrected. NUFC Matters didn't let me down. In fact, the opposite applied. There was an excellent cross-section of guests who provided an excellent perspective of what they thought might be going on. And the Dubai and Saudi connections in particular gave significant hope where otherwise there might have been little. Mitch had his contacts and remained optimistic things weren't over, not by a long chalk. And what about Al Walid? Was it the Geordie's here, Geordie's there podcast? I'm not sure, but I used to love the way that he sat quietly, listened patiently, and spoke calmly at the appropriate time. At no stage did he lose his composure, and for all the world he still seemed confident that the takeover could still happen. It was tremendous for me, but remember I'm still desperate for the consortium to move in. I'm far from certain that I would have dealt with things so positively without the help of the Matters team, and if that sounds a bit ridiculous, I really don't mind. The takeover simply had to happen. Simple as. So what now? Well, I remember there were petitions and requests to contact politicians to put some pressure on. Incredibly, I found myself emailing, remember I don't do technology, Tracy Crouch, Oliver Dowden and Chi Onwura. One of their secretaries actually replied, thanks Chi. And Liam Kennedy and Keith Patterson featured regularly on the Matters platform. Liam did his best to keep chins up and at the same time trying to maintain a degree of journalistic fairness. Generally, I think he succeeded. And what can you say about Keith? For a fantastic insight into the world of competition law and his absolute commitment to Newcastle United, as well as his determination to resurrect the takeover, he really was fantastic. And he was happy to join the Matters team on a regular basis to keep us informed and encouraged. I actually had the same attitude as Keith, very similar anyway. He stated more than once that if the thwarters ultimately succeeded, he was done with one football. It was the same for me, but because it's in the blood, I would have maintained a touch of interest. I wonder if Keith would have done as well. So the months passed, COVID arrived, football was played with empty stadia, but the takeover wasn't dead, and I was just hoping that Bruce Ball could avoid a relegation that would have put a grotesque fly in the ointment, and Brucey Boy succeeded. We stayed up. And the rest, as they say, is history. It was the 6th of October 2021, and the news started filtering through that the takeover was on. The 7th of October 2021 was of greatest days in our club's history. And make no mistake, our owners are second to none and genuinely aim to make our club the same. Just ask Stu Penman. We're making excellent progress despite the appalling financial regulations. Perhaps they're just a subject for another day. And we shouldn't forget Amanda. Confirmed it was Mr. Al-Ramayan who chose Eddie. So no judgmental problems there. I've gone on a bit, so on the off chance someone's actually read this, then I actually apologise if it's a little laborious and emotive. I just love the tune. And as the song goes, we have good reason to have hope in our heart. And that's down to the takeover. Thank you to all at NUFC Matters for helping to navigate through the takeover and giving hope where there appeared very little. And please keep going. It's a cracking platform, and not just for me. Yours appreciatively, John Askew. John, thank you very much, mate. And honestly, we're all just Geordie lads who have our own issues. Behind the scenes, we come and do these podcasts. I do seven a week. God knows how I do it, but I do. And the rest of the lads chip in. The lads in front of you do 2 or 3 maybe a week at times. We all have our own issues and problems going on in our own lives, but we do love doing the show. So that kind of email, mate, and I make no apologies for taking up 11 minutes reading it out, is very important because that gives us a bit of a boost, and it gives us a bit of a G up sometimes when we're down and we're thinking about jacking it all in or not doing anything, or life's getting on top of us. So thank you for that, mate. Somebody did read it, I read it, and I've read it to everybody who watches the show. So thank you for taking the time to send it in. And just thankfully, John, I've got to say, mate, I did laugh because you have to take up about 3 messages in the chat. I'm thinking, God Almighty, John, don't ever put one of them in the chat. You'll upset everybody. Mitch, I make no apologies for starting with this. It's not self-indulgent. It's not anything other than just saying thank you, really, I guess, to John for sending that in. Oh, you've gone off. You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
There you are.
It's kind words that do give us the fillip. On the journey we've been on with this platform, we've been called all sorts of times, unfairly so. I'm very happy that I can look in the mirror and know what we did and what we didn't do and what we weren't aware of, etc. But it's easy to criticise and it's easy to chuck stones. I keep coming back to the journey that I originally wanted to be on, was like John, just want to talk about Newcastle again, football. And I feel like I'm now never ever going to do that in one way, shape or form, because we've become so embroiled in so many things and so many acronyms, PSR, APT, you name it, we've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. But it really is nice to know that people appreciate it and people, feel that the words that we are lucky enough to share on a platform like this. And it really is a blessing to have a platform like this. And it's not something that should be abused. And it's not something that I get angry when I see people with a platform misusing it, in my opinion. It's not right and it's not fair. It's a privilege. And it's been a privilege to reach out to people. And when you're stopped in Charles de Gaulle Airport by somebody random along the way, when somebody turns up at your practice in Dubai out the blue that you've never met before because they wanted to come and say thank you, because that's happened a couple of times. It's stunning and humbling and delightful and many other things as well.
Yeah, certainly is. I just want to read this as well. I didn't forget, Mark. Don't worry. Just to some the other side of our chat up. Mark Byers wrote us a poem. Yes, I haven't edited it. I have checked it though. Here's a little poem I wrote about the NUFC Matters crew. Some have lots of hair on their head, and some have none or few. They've all had their share of internet bullies and anonymous trollers. But the trolls should watch out, or Mitch will pull out all their molars. That's if he's not at the bar racking up a huge bar bill or holding little budgies in his pants against their will. Then there's his dad, good old George. Knowledge never lacking, but I wish I had a quid for every time he said shellacking. There's a few worthy of mention from the Monday Fans Forum, like Murphy hating Darren, who's got no bloody decorum. Barry Hogan's always drunk, getting his back doors slammed. And Megaphone Magnus from Iceland with a voice from a heavy rock band. The Amigos show has its very own dog lookalike extraordinaire. Who can miss Steve Hasty with that silver flowing hair? Then there's Mr. Penman, who's made the 3-1 score his own. And when there's a bet with Ben Jacobs, he's like a dog with a bone. Then Keith comes on from time to time, viewing figures get better. But never forget that Patterson bloke, he only wrote one letter. There's a bloke from the Middle East, his name is Al Walid. He's Saudi, he's mental, he's off his effing heed. John Gibbo always does his show wearing a flat cap, sometimes flanked by Supermac if his internet's not crap. Then there's the host of it all, who gives him a lot of his spare time. Some would say a workaholic who no longer does true crime. His head above the parapet, he gets some unjust stick. He rises above it time and again. His skin must be so thick. He often gets ridiculed for having hair on his chin, but none his bunts, and without matters wouldn't exist. Our favourite bald Tory N. So thank you, Steve, for his community, a cult some would say. It helps me keep in touch with all good things in Newcastle in the USA. Thank you, Mark, for that. So we are getting a bit of fan mail, Steve. What did you make of the letter and the poem?
The poem, fantastic. Expected nothing else from Mr. Byers with his observational skills. And the letter, well, I mean, the letter, absolutely fantastic. Really, really genuine stuff coming out there. But saying what we say ourselves about the club and about the fan base, you know, we're all just passionate, as Mitch says. And poems and emails. I bumped in that little thing before there at the car wash this afternoon, and it was great to have a chat about and Alan, you know, saying how much the matter shows got him through COVID and various and I hear that time and time again now. I hear it before the match. I hear it in the Irish Centre. I hear it all the events that would turn up at, and it is quite humbling, but at the same time, I think we have tried to keep our feet on the ground, and certainly I have, and I know you guys do. And it's just nice to have a bunch of fans who can get together and just have a good laugh and talk about football and talk about their club, the club they love. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, there was a mention there of PSR and various acronyms. I'm now calling it the pathetically scandalous rules. And isn't it funny that only yesterday it came back and bit West Ham on the backside, who, after admitting that their directors at that meeting yesterday admitted that the PSR was introduced specifically to stifle Newcastle United. And lo and behold, they're now being stifled themselves by PSR. And I don't think they're the only club. It just shows you they didn't listen, they didn't grasp the situation. And if they think they're being bitten now, just wait.
Classic. It is Kevin Keegan's birthday today, and seeing as we're on a bit of a poetry spot, I did write one this morning. A special day for me and you. It all began in '82. You arrived into my life and never caused me trouble or strife. Every year we celebrate 14th of February, our special date. St. Valentine, I hear you say. Certainly not. It's Keegan's birthday. There we go. George, what did you make of the letter from John and the poem from Mark?
Great. And it's times like that when I'd with a real fan like John, you want to say to him, well, if you think that takeover was messy, he doesn't even know about is it 4 or 5 that were trying to get involved in before that one started. I mean, if you only knew half of that, his mind would boggle. And then the poem, well, that just sheer class. That people take what I get a tingle at my spine that people will take the time out to do something like that. I mean, that they're not they're not constructed in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. You've got to sit down and think about doing that. And the very fact that fans of the club and fans of the platform will actually give that time and sit down and do it is just incredible. The only other thing I'd add about the takeover, you lads know that with my legal side of my life, my all through I was wondering why, as Keith did sometimes, why we didn't just take the whole thing to the bloody competition court and blow it out of the water. But our Saudi owners showed their common sense and realised that's probably exactly what the Premier League wanted to do, so they could say, well, there's those naughty people in the northeast doing all these things, and it didn't happen. So the other side of it is to the two contributors. Really grateful, as I am, as I know Steve is, and others. When we sometimes stand at the food bank or even in the ground, and people come up and say how much they enjoy the platform, and it's really good to meet them people, and never stop doing that because it's really, really nice, and it gives us the buzz to keep going and keep pushing on, because it really is a great thing, and I don't mind admitting that the getting involved with the platform was a great boost for me for a lot of reasons. My wife's illness, COVID, and all of that. It was great to get involved and be able to contribute. And with the history of supporting Newcastle as I have, when it was just a gift from heaven in some ways. So, and of course, doing it with people I love and get on with very well, made it just that much better. So, thank you for taking the trouble. Is the important message I want to give. That doesn't happen in no time. You've got to sit down and think about it. And I'm truly grateful to you both for taking that time. It takes a lot of doing, and thank you.
Thanks, lads, and thank you everybody in the chat for your nice comments. Much appreciated, Eamon, as well. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, let's get to the questions, because that's what you do tune in for. We'll come to Anthony's question about the Man City game in the second half when we look ahead to the match, and we have Joe on. We could take any one. There's lots of financial questions coming in today. Derek says, question, do you think certain clubs are trying to enforce the PSR rules to harm the Premier League so that they can join a Super League, Mitch?
Look, Super League's always in the background. And there are certain clubs who were very happy to talk about that. They've got away with murder in many ways. They've not really had anything thrown at them that they really should have, because they were quite happy to dismantle the Premier League and bugger off to a Super League at one point, until the heat in the kitchen got a little bit too hot. And then they all started getting out. It's an interesting situation, because extending the current PSR for another year doesn't help some of those clubs at all. Man United's the one that springs to mind. The change to an alignment with UEFA in percentage of earnings for wages, etc., actually helps them. So to see that extended for another year really is probably hack them off. It gives us another year to get our ducks in a row. Whereas with PSR, we're probably going to be grand for the extended year. Under the UEFA rules, weren't as grand. And so to not have that come in as quick will help some clubs and will hinder others. But I don't think there's anything sinister about that. I think we've got a Premier League who are legally under fire on a number of fronts, and who probably have decided, let's keep the status quo because it's going to cause with the least amount of problems, while we're still dealing with Man City, while we're still dealing with this, while we're still dealing with that. I don't think there's anything more to it than them just corralling the wagons a little bit while they're under fire for other things.
Thoughts, Steve? I mean, I think Mitch is right. The Super League's always there in the background, isn't it? It's not gone away. They don't just say, all right, okay, we'll pack it in and that's that. We'll give it a bit of a thought. We'll give it a push. But if that's what the fans want, it is still there in the background.
Yeah, of course it is. The Super League's the Champions League at the moment. The adapted Champions League, as we've now got, is almost, you could call it a Super League. The way that they've structured it, there was only 8 teams dropped out. Then they have a playoff round to get into what would have been the Super League, the number of teams that they would want in it, all playing each other. It's money. It's how else can you describe it other than money? What's the other phrase I'm looking for? Greed. Is that the word? They're looking for advantages all the way along the line that suit themselves financially. It's disregarding the supporters completely. They have no, they're now talking about, for example, the Champions League finals being played in America. These are the people who all they look at is the top line. They don't look at that. They have no conscience. They have, and we could go on. I'm sure later on there'll be a question that will bring a topic that is hovering around Newcastle at the moment into that. But it's very much looking at the top line. It's looking at the cash. It's looking at what they can do, and at the same time, what PSR has done is it's put the fear of God into them, stifling Newcastle United and stifling one or two other clubs who could have been a threat. Newcastle were the big threat. The very fact that West Ham have come out and admitted it really leaves those clubs wide open to the very court case that George has mentioned. And if we don't see the rules change where the advantage is flipped and the playing level made more even, then it inevitably somebody will. The irony being, of course, that it'll be a Manchester United, somebody like that, who will end up taking the Premier League to court because PSR has stifled them. Because that's the sort of idiotic thing that Jim Ratcliffe and the rest of his minions there would probably try on. As soon as it starts to affect them, they'll jump at it. But no, I mean, this is it's always going to be there. That there'll be the very fact that you've got that organisation behind the scenes who is still living and breathing with only 2 clubs involved, but with the courts of Europe behind them, it tells you that there is still something that's mingling in the background. And the thing that's mingling is cash and money. If UEFA stumble in any way and start to adjust the financial positions of some of the top clubs, you can guarantee that they will jump immediately. Absolutely. At the moment, some of them are hanging on by their nails. And as teams in the Premier League, the likes of an Aston Villa, Newcastle, let's see how Everton progress when they get their new ground. The Bournemouths and the Brightons of this world, these clubs are threatening the status quo. You're seeing Arsenal now with complaining about injuries. No, you're overplaying your players. You're in that many competitions and you're limited to 25 and you're overplaying your players. That's the problem. You've never rotated your squad, Mr. Arteta. But they'll use the rules, or they'll use excuses to delve into all sorts of reasons why there should be a more steadier playing field. I wouldn't be surprised, put it this way, if you ended up in a situation where you could have different squads playing in the European Super League that would play in the Premier League. That's the way that, you can see that sort of thing happening. You can see them going, well, we've got a different team for that and different team for that. But as a club, we're intermingled. So we've almost seen it with the Conference League, where you've got clubs like Chelsea that didn't pick players in the starting qualifying rounds, but now that they're into the nitty-gritty, they're starting to bring those players back into their squad as well, to rest them and this type of thing. So lots of shenanigans going on. And I think as fans, we've just got to keep on top of it. The FSA, certainly watching it. I'm in a little group with some of the fans that fan groups that are involved in the food bank, and I hear various stories about how their clubs are treating their own supporters, the attitude within those football clubs to supporters, which would honestly, if you had it, make your hair curl, Steve, really would. It's quite scary. The way that the contempt that fans are again starting to be viewed by the people in charge. We've known it for years, but other clubs are starting to taste it and feel it now. And I think that elastic band is stretching and stretching and stretching, and it's not long before it will snap.
Congratulations to Stephen Donathy and family on the birth of their beautiful granddaughter, Esme. I hope everything's going well with their mother and daughter. And congratulations. Have a drink for you over the weekend. George, thoughts on the Super League? And, we're constantly hear stuff about PSR. I don't want to get dragged into that, but the Super League's still there, isn't it?
I'm happy not to, because anybody that looks at it, of course, our Big Six associated with the big ones that want to go into the Super League and try to set it all up have one thing in common: they're massively in debt. They're all not just millions in debt, they're billions in debt. And that's why Manchester United's getting bigger, deeper and deeper into the hole. Radcliffe's not getting rid of all these loyal servants of Manchester United for fun. He is actually trying to make a hole in the hole that they've got. But sooner or later, the odd thing is, the way they're going, they might be the ones that press the sue button. Take the Premier League to court to get out of it. And with him involved, everything he's been involved in, whether America's Cup, cycling, F1. Look at how his fingers have been in the changing of the rules to favour the teams he's involved in. He might try and do the same for Manchester United, and but that's the big common denominator. Is they're all massively in debt. That's the only reason, particularly the ones in Spain, Barcelona and Real Madrid. That's really why they wanted European League. It wasn't for any benefit to football or to football fans. It was just sheer greed. They just wanted more money to get them out of the hole that they're in. And our lot aren't any different at all, because that's the one common denominator with them all. The other thing is that somebody mentioned the fact that it's touched West Ham. Isn't it ironic? Only a month ago, their deputy chairman, Karen Brady, Lady Brady, stood up in the House of Lords and tried to browbeat the Minister of Sport in the House of Lords into reopening the Newcastle negotiations. Get the new regulator to open the negotiations to see if it really is a separate entity from the Saudi Arabian government. What did the minister do? Didn't know what the hell to say. Was gobsmacked, because they haven't thought it through. They haven't got the whole thing out of thing. However, eventually in a written answer, she was told that's not going to happen. But isn't it interesting that she'd stand up and do that at this stage, and yet in a month later, they're complaining because it's affecting them. It's all a case of the bite a bit for me, and this is still a bit of me that says, let's go and smash them, in the courts. But then go back to what I said before, that our owners are a bit more crafty than that, and if they do it, they'll do it in their time. And I hark back to what they've done elsewhere. Look what they've done to golf. Look what they've done to other sports they've got involved in. Despite, similarly with us, being accused of this sports washing thing and all the rest of it, the sports that have got involved with them, including golf, hasn't harmed them. It's changed them massively, and it's also changing the outlook on things within Saudi itself as well. You can see it happening if you look carefully. So I it'll happen, but it'll be not tomorrow. But I'm convinced it will happen. And the one thing we've got is the Saudis won't go away. That now that they're in, and they're in big, they're not going to go away. So we've got them there.
Did you want to say something else, Mitch?
Yes, I've just been pointed to this on Twitter by Jimmy Moore. Breaking news from Matt Lawton at the Times. Man City score major victory as Premier League sponsorship rules declared void.
Oh, dear.
Well, what an appropriate time to bring this into the conversation, isn't it?
Wow.
Thank you, Jimmy.
As Bob Dylan said, our conversation was short and sweet. It clearly knocked us off our feet.
Sponsorship rules enforced between 2023 and 2024 declared void. Independent tribunal ruled in October last year 3 elements of the rules regarding APT were unlawful. City's interpretation of the initial decision was that APT rules in their entirety were void. So basically, it's the revolver analogy. I have a revolver. It has 6 bullets, 1 in each chamber. I fire them all at you. I miss with the first 5. I hit you in the head with the 6th. You're dead. And that's the argument with this. It doesn't matter how many of your rules are upheld, even if one of them is declared unlawful, your entire framework is null and void. And they were warned about this. And what did the Premier League do? They went and tinkered. They tinkered with the 3 elements that they were found against, and they said, we'll roll them back. Okay, everybody says, let's do that. Everybody wanted to know why Man City went at them again legally. This is why. This is why. Because if the entire framework now has been declared void, the rollback framework is totally void. The whole thing is void. One wonders if we had a heads up on this, and is this why we've been silent on some of the sponsorship fronts. Very interestingly, also today, Jacobo Solis, now on the board of Newcastle United, has been moved from head of European investment to head of international investment with PIF, and therefore now has a far bigger portfolio of companies he could bring in to chat with Newcastle United. Everybody's been playing 3D chess while I've been playing checkers, I think. There's obviously more to come from this. This is obviously breaking, so we'll kind of get ahead of ourselves. But doesn't it seem quite an interesting time?
I've retweeted that. Anybody following me on Twitter at Steve Wraith, just get yourself onto there and retweeted it. It's probably behind a paywall, but Matt Lawton is a well-respected journalist and certainly would have the lowdown on that. So that is huge news breaking. Steve, interesting times and good timing. Thank you to Matt Lawton for doing it when the Amigos is on.
Good old Matt, he must know that we start at 5. It's going to be an interesting boardroom tomorrow at the Etihad, isn't it? You know, can you imagine all of a sudden?
Champagne all round, Crystal.
Really, yeah. It'll be all free as well. Hey, you know what? There should be a free bar for Newcastle fans and City fans behind there, shouldn't there? Good luck.
I wonder if Richard Masters is a guest.
Aye, can you imagine it?
No, he's the barbecue. He's the barbecue.
I mean, but it's, as Mitch says, it's not like they weren't warned. I mean, Keith Patterson told us, 6 months ago, if not longer. He then reiterated it when City went to court. He then came back and he explained it to us again in words of 1 syllable when he came on the show, that it was all illegal. Watch this space. You know, that's because Keith is a watcher, a doer, and he's intelligent, and he knows his stuff, and he knows some very, very high-profile lawyers that could basically, you know, he could go to, like the people who supported him when he was doing his case, and could say, yes, that's what it is. You know, how many times, if we had £1 for every time Keith mentioned competition law, we would be millionaires as well, Steve. Let's put it that way. You know, and it never sunk in with the Premier League. They stuck their heads in the sand. And to think that it was only yesterday that they were going to have a meeting to change the rules again, to change them, to make them just for the 3 ones that we feel as though we needed to tinker as per the court case. Where would Masters would have had to fall on his sword at 5:05 if they had announced yesterday that they tinkered with those 3 that they felt simply needed tinkering with, where would Masters have been? The very fact that he's there, however, I mean, he needs to fall on his sword now anyway, but he would have been that 6-shot revolver that Mitch is talking about. He would have needed all 6 shots, wouldn't he, to kill himself with that one? You know, he would have fired all 6 to try and hit himself, because let's face it, he's dead in the water now as far as the Premier League's concerned. The other 19 clubs, or the 18 if we disregard Newcastle, the other 18 clubs must be sitting there going, what the hell have you done? Because the question now is, what will City do? Where will City go? Will City go for the jugular with compensation that they were expecting, that they threatened? Will City just lie down and say, right, okay, that's it. It's all done now. You can't complain about any, and they suddenly come up with with the associated party transactions that they felt as though they were justified with? Will they claim back the difference from the Premier League between what they thought they should have had and what they were allowed to have? This could have ramifications right through. But you know what? We need to sit back. We need to understand a little bit more about Matt's article, see where it comes out, and be interesting to hear from, if we ever do hear from Newcastle United. I think Newcastle will probably say nothing, but I think their actions may say an awful lot.
It might put more flesh on the bones as to why they've nudged PSR on for another year. Because if they've known this was coming, there's plenty to deal with there.
Yeah, and I wonder what it'll mean for the clubs that missed out and had points deducted. Where does that take us?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah,
you know, I mean, this is the sort of thing. This is what blows up, isn't it? And it's
and it goes deeper as far as Masters and his crew's concerned, because again, going back to the legal things I kept raising, I've never been involved in arbitration to do with this, but I have been involved in arbitration to do with marine activity. And one of the things you've got to be careful about is that it's a civil thing, but once you do something unlawful, as 3 KCs have told them it's unlawful, it becomes a criminal matter, because you've it's like going into court and lying under oath. And I'd love to see the paperwork attached to this related to the emails and things that have flown between Masters and the Big Six when they were trying to block us, because I think that would go past slander. It would go into a conspiracy. You know, that's the other side. If they've conspired to keep Newcastle United out on those rules which were unlawful, you know, they should all go to jail, is my view.
The thing is, George, it was associated party transactions. That was the reason. That's what the fear was with the rest of the Premier League when Newcastle's takeover happened. Associated party transactions. In other words, that we would get a boatload of money put in by sponsors from Saudi Arabia. Now they've been proved that is something. City took the case on. City took the case on because they got caught up in it. It wasn't targeting City, but City were caught up because City had deals already in the offing, and Newcastle might not have, but City did. And so because of that, City went, hang on, we're not having it. So hence them taking it to court. They were looking after themselves. We know that. But what transpires is the impact that it's going to have on everybody else, you know?
Yeah, it's exciting news. Certainly is. We will endeavour to get Keith on at some point. I've sent him a message. You know, he'd be already busy doing his hair, I would imagine, and getting ready to go out on a Friday night with his lass. But if he can come on for 5 or 10 minutes, then I'm sure he will. But if not, we'll try and get him on a little bit later this week. Might even get him on Sunday's show if possible. But yeah, good news. Matt Lawton reporting in the Times. And yeah, it's definitely get your popcorn time out. Man City's lawyers certainly have proved their worth, I guess. And yeah, what news? What this means is news for Newcastle United. Well, only time will tell. But I think it would make a lot of sense as to why we've been waiting around. And again, we've tried not to build things up on the show. We've just tried to give an honest assessment and opinion, and I think we've always done that. So we will wait and see. As always, plenty to get through on a Friday night, and don't forget, you can send different things to us at NUFC Matters 1892 at gmail.com. We're asking you to send in your first matches. We've had a great response to this. Lots of people have sent them in. I was going to do Jamie Fenders today because Jamie did send one in. Jamie, I will do yours next week. And you'll see the reason why when we play today's. Peter Stott, thank you for sending this in. He says, with the sad news of John Tudor passing, I'd like to tell you of my first time at St James's Park. The date was the 31st of the 3rd, 1975 against Queen's Park Rangers. My dad told me he was taking me to the match on a Saturday morning. I would have been 6 years old at the time. It was so exciting to be going to see Newcastle play, me, my dad and my oldest brother John, who was 14 years older than me. We set off from Westerhope on the bus in front of the Runnymede pub, and upstairs on the bus it was full of smoke. We got to the ground early. I remember being told to stay outside a pub. It's called the Magpie, where my dad and my brother went in. I was given some sweets, a bag of crisps, and told not to move. We walked across the road, went into the ground. I've never felt anything like it. Excitement. To be honest, a little bit scary. All the supporters shouting and singing. We went to the corner flag near the Leazes paddock end. The game ended in a 2-2 draw. John Tudor and Supermax scored. I remember Dave Thomas taking a couple of corners from where we were. I told him he was rubbish, as if he could hear me. I loved every minute of that day. The next day, we were on shoot as we were watching it. And when the camera panned in on Dave Thomas taking a corner, I excitedly pointed out to my mum that we were on TV. My mum started giving my older brother a right mouthful. When we got the bus to town, he was supposed to go to work at the old lead works. He sacked it off to come to the match instead. And my mum saw him when I pointed this out in the crowd. First match memories I'll never forget.
Fantastic.
Peter, love that, mate. Thank you very much. And we will have another one of those next week. Next question is to Dave Havery. I just want to thank Dave as well for coordinating Chris Argyros' mum and dad's visit to Tyneside. He put a lot of work and effort into that, brought them to the Irish Centre. And as we mentioned on the show the other week, it was great to see them. Sadly, they didn't get the result that they wanted, but it was a lot more than that. It was an emotive trip to the UK for them to meet Chris's friends and meet them in London as well as up in the northeast. So thanks for doing that, Dave. His question is a simple one. What do you guys think about the club now adopting 1881 as the date we were formed? I've seen a bit about this, Mitch. The first thing I was thinking of was poor Bronwyn, who was on this show probably. It must be about 2 years ago. I mean, she set up a clothes brand, if I remember rightly, which was it 18? Was it 18?
It was 1892, and then she got the dreaded letter off the club to say you can't do that, and so I think she changed it to 1881, and I hope she took the advice of trademarking it.
Interesting this
because that's what I see with this is another opportunity for additional celebratory centenary shirts, 125-year shirts. It feels like a club looking at every possible way they can tie any associated date and therefore trademark and something they can use to make money on in Newcastle United, to me. To suddenly come out and say, oh yeah, well, we were founded as one club then and then we became United in 1892. To me, it's 1892. That's Newcastle United. Anything before then wasn't Newcastle United. So, you know, do you say that it's a heritage club in a heritage formation? I don't get the point of it, but I suspect somebody can make some money out of it, and that's usually the motivation behind things like this.
Steve, 1881 then? Is that what we're settled on?
It sounds like it. If Paul Janus,
all them tattoos.
well, that's the other thing, isn't it? Can you imagine it? It's Paul Janu, I think, has been chasing this for a while with the club. Paul Janu's the club historian, and
lovely guy.
Yeah, yes. But it's what I find baffling. And maybe it's just me, but they're saying that the club was originally formed. It's like saying Manchester United was originally Newton Heath. You know, it was a different club that was formed. It was a club that played over the bottom end of Chile Road down to the bottom towards the river. And for me, that wasn't Newcastle United. Newcastle United was when the clubs came together, and then when the East End and the West End, and then the West End folded, and the clubs were playing at St James's Park. That for me was Newcastle United. Am I wrong in thinking that we also played in red?
Yeah, well,
yes.
That's really,
in 81. Yeah. Oh, that gives all of us a little. Doesn't it? You know,
isn't the red and blue hoop shirt one of the early shirts Newcastle United played in, because it was the red of one and the blue of the other?
Could well have been.
That's right.
Could well
exactly.
have been. Exactly. But this is what happens when you start to dig in, isn't it? This is, you know, and I'm wondering whether I can genuinely say that yes, it was 1881, or whether it's whether it really is a historical fact, or it's a historical sort of notion that's transpired, and in so much as, you know, it was this, it then became that, it then moved to there, and at that point it changed its name again. To me, the 1881 wasn't Newcastle United. I support Newcastle United, so that's why I think the vast majority, and probably why the club itself, because that's when it became Newcastle United, was 1892. But to try and dig back, I wonder whether, I mean, 1881 looks great. It's a palindrome, isn't it? So it's as Mitch mentioned, it's a marketing opportunity there. You know, it's an opportunity for more shirts. It's an opportunity for more kit. But at the same time, it's kind of, is it wiping out the history and the knowledge that we've already had, and is it there purely because it's just something that's just been dug up, you know? And I don't know why we needed to go down that path, to be perfectly honest. But I'm sure someone with greater knowledge than I can come up with all sorts of feasible arguments to justify it. And at the end of the day, whether the club was 1881 or 1892 makes absolutely no difference to how we get on this season. We've got a cup final to play, we've got a 5th round to play, and we've got a big league game tomorrow to play. And as far as history is concerned, that's the sort of history that I'm interested in now. The history of the club going forward. And I'll not get hung up on 1881, but I will have a strange little smile on my face if Bronwyn has copyrighted 1881, because I look back at the number of people who have been chased over the last couple of weeks and months, and I look back at the number of people who were chased in previous years by Freddie Fletcher, for example, when he was going, you yourself, exactly, Mitch, and I think, you know, you're using a a sledgehammer to crack a nut at times. And then you see other football clubs, and you travel to other football grounds, and you see stalls outside that are just filled with memorabilia, and the club goes, you know what, it's not worth the argument. It's not worth the hassle. But for some reason, we are sitting in a situation where we want to milk the fans for every penny, and I'm sure this will be another opportunity. But hey, good luck to them. Well done, Paul, for all the work you've done in establishing that we're previously playing at a ground in 1881.
George, this is going to ruin pub quizzes.
Really? I don't think it will, because I mean, it's funny, this week I felt like I've been in a parallel universe. Do you know what I mean? I've been watching. I got across a couple of things on Instagram. There was Trump reading out a list of people who can't be air traffic controllers, like people that are blind and people that are deaf, and I think to myself, what the hell's he on about now? And I switched that off and went on, and there was a girl on berating everybody for supporting Isaac Newton. That all this trouble in the world's down to Isaac Newton because he discovered gravity. If he hadn't discovered gravity, none of this would have been happening. And I thought to myself, for God's sake, get off this, buddy lad. You're going to drive yourself crackers. And now it's happening to me football club. 1892, as far as I'm concerned. And I appreciate the work that people have done with this 1881 thing. But they weren't Newcastle United then, in my opinion. They were Newcastle United when they were in 1882. And that's how I'll always think about it. And I'll not be persuaded to change that. So I think if it's used in the pub quiz, it's going to be used as a trick question. So have both the dates ready.
I'm completely confused now. I've got 3 different dates swimming around my head. I've got no idea what I wouldn't know what to answer.
I mean, which is why we stick to 1892, in my opinion, and especially as Steve and I sitting by it in 92 when we go to the match, of course.
You'll have to tell us if they've had a Sharpie out and adjusted it when he's gone in next.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'll blame Pete Townsend, George. I'll blame Pete Townsend because let's face it, he said the deaf, dumb and blind kid can't play a mean air traffic controller.
Yeah. Yes.
Halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. A big thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email them at beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. If you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and your other podcast providers. If you want to help support the channel, hit the thumb up, which is the like button. Click share to share to your other social medias. Click join to join the channel, and click the subscribe button. We've also got links in our description for buy us a coffee and to be a Patreon member. Some events coming up. An afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand, 6th of April, 12 till 4. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. No Covers takes place at the Cluny, Lilac Lane, Ryder and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets from theclooney.com or by telephone in 0191 230 4474. An Evening with Steve Howie and Steve Watson, hosted by Joe Allen, takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 27th of June. Tickets for that are from newcastlelegends.com. An Evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on the 23rd of January 2026. Box office 0844 246 1000 or website tynetheatreandoperahouse.tv. An Evening with Bad Manners takes place on Friday the 30th of January 2026 and tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainers 1992 to 1997, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, available from newcastlelegends.com. Okay, welcome back to the Three Amigos. Welcome to Joe. Good evening, Joe.
Evening, gentlemen. All right.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Welcome to the show. You join us just in time for one of our next segments. It is Tweet of the Week. And as I always say, if you are easily offended, it's probably best to turn away now. Go make yourself a cuppa. Mitch, somebody sent us this in as a suggestion as a watch for you. It's all right, isn't it? I don't know how much that's worth, Mitch, but it's quite handy. 1945. It's got the time on. It's a proper watch. That. Don't know how much it's worth.
Smartwatch.
It's a smartwatch. Pay by the meter. Pay by the meter. Okay, good news, by the way. I've just had a text there from Keith Patterson. He's going to jump on for 10 minutes. So we'll get through these quite quickly and I'll send him the link. This one was in response to last week. That's me on the right of the picture taking a Cambersan scooter rally many moons ago. The reason is because I didn't know where the shop was, lads. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, BJ's on the beach.
In the tweet of the week last week. So thank you to our eagle-eyed viewer who was watching last week, who sent that over. Much appreciated. Thank you very much, Roddy. Really do. We're getting inundated with Star Trek ones again. Every morning I take my cow on a long walk through the local vineyard. You don't mean? Yes, I heard through the grapevine. Thank you, Keith.
Right.
And this one, this is from Beverly at our wonderful coach firm sponsors. My friend Joe recently went on the Dolly Parton diet. How did it work? It really made me Jolene. I'm glad you sprayed spades, as the other day. And I did once get up and do karaoke in a pub, and I've just stumbled across this. You'll laugh at this, everybody. That time, Steve Wraith sang in my logo.
Yeah, I know.
That is a true story, by the way. The perfect photo bomb. It does exist, folks. like Spock's, yes. Couple of food ones. We're getting a lot of food ones festively. What's the matter, babe? You've not even touched your Greg's Benedict. I do like those. And Jimmy, thanks for this one. Tweet of the week. Who made this nugget mad? Poor old Gino. He's getting it in the neck, and now he's getting a bit of stick in the shops.
Sex pest.
And I lost my pizza cutter, so I used a Bryan Adams CD. It cuts like a knife, lad.
Oh, very good.
Oh,
very good, very good. This one was this created a bit of debate, didn't it, Steve? One for the show, lads. Somewhere in Wallsend, somebody drove to the cup final in that, Steve, didn't they?
I'm sure they did. Yeah, I'm sure that was at the final. It used to go everywhere, didn't it? You used to see it going around the town and everything, but I'm sure that the lads took that. I think it was 98 or 99, but I'm sure someone will be able to tell with somebody from Wallsend. That looks like the car park just off the high street, but I might be wrong.
Okay, thank you for sending that in. If you've got any stories about it, send us an email at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. We've got a few signs. No dickheads. We ask you to respect our no dickheads policy. If you're a dickhead, have been known to be a dickhead, or are thinking about being a dickhead today, we ask you to go and be a dickhead somewhere else.
Only in Australia.
I'm sure that's an Australian sign. We used to call it a quickie. Now it's called a speed hump.
Oh,
And kitchen, hand job available. Notice the patio is currently not open because it is closed.
Oh, very good.
oh, yes.
Fair
Well,
enough.
And surprise your Valentine. That's not a very well placed sign, that, lads, is it?
Peter Sutcliffe edition.
I think so, yes. This bus stood out in the crowd. Bum Travels.
bum travels.
And this motorcyclist caught someone's attention this week. If you can read this, my wife has fallen off.
Oh, very good.
And then Asda this week, popped in to get a pizza for tea. Now I've lost my appetite.
Oh, God.
Definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
And to all you beautiful girls, happy Valentine's Day. To all you fat birds, chin up. It's Pancake Day next week. I've seen that one before.
Yeah.
It's a classic. And one of these landed in someone's lap this week. I'll not say who, but his initials are MB.
yeah.
And another Star Trek one. Every day there's a bike that tries to run me over. Oh, it's a vicious cycle.
Oh, God.
Cheers, Sam.
Gee.
What a book recommendation this week. Nobody wants to play with a smelly pussy.
Right.
And a cartoon. All I'm saying is, when you promised me a special Valentine's treat for dessert, I'd kind of set me heart on apple crumble. Are you involved in any dangerous sports? Well, sometimes I disagree with my wife.
Yeah.
And I must have an amazing bud, because every time I walk away from someone, lads, I hear them whisper, what an ass.
Yeah.
And when you both know it'll end in disaster, but you just don't care, lads.
Oh, yes. Very good.
And when your landlord says, no pets. And this is what irony means. You buy an electric car to save the planet and a tree kills it. Tweet of the week as well from Jimmy. And that, my friends, was a car seat safety in the 1970s. And the worst place to get a splinter, lads.
Oh, dear.
Your thumb.
Well, lad.
Cheers, Gary. One of those name ones has dropped into the inbox this week. Mike, check. 1 2 1 2.
Oh,
And it's my smackhead nephew's birthday tomorrow, so I've put £20 in his nan's purse. And the one that won this week, lads, made well, it was a toss-up between these two. This one, someone clearly didn't think this sign through. My ass is open, 6 a.m. And this one, I laughed too much at this. This is the winner this week from Gary. Na 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 Batman.
no.
That would have been a Steve Hasty lookalike in the past.
Oh,
Anyway, we are moving on. We're going to have more of them next week. nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Ping them over to us at the email, and we will feature them next week. Right on cue. Here he is, Keith Patterson, by demand, by the fans. Where is Keith? We need his response to this news. We're on air for 15, 20 minutes, mate, and then we saw the article in the Tyne, so I sent it over to you. Thanks for jumping on. We'll give you, I know you just said 10 minutes or so because you're going out. Give us your views on what this all means, mate.
I think it'll take time to roll out, but it'll probably cool a lot of people down wondering why Newcastle's been so quiet, because the whole APT case was about setting Newcastle rules at a meeting they weren't invited to. And I think everybody's missed the fact that if you don't go to a meeting, you don't get evidence. And if there's 19 of you sitting in a meeting talking about Newcastle, that's all the evidence you need if one of them will speak up.
Yeah.
One party will speak up.
Yeah.
You can't deny that it's happened, but getting somebody to come forward and say it's happening, it's blatantly anti-competitive is huge. So Newcastle's now got the evidence. People have been critical. Sort of saying, when are you guys going to join in? And there's a saying in life is that revenge or an action's best when served cold. And I think what Newcastle's done is they've just calmly gathered all the evidence together, and now in a position where they can call the shots. I've spoken to some top KCs over the last week and over the last few months, and they're all of the opinion that probably the way to beat this is to do a fans action where fans come forward and the club backs the fans, because fans have standing. If you remember when I run the case, a lot of people said the case that NCSL's run won't happen because he's got no standing. That means no skin in the game. It's now been agreed by council, who the people who govern the law, the people who fight the law and debate it. Council's decided and sort of agreed on all sides that fans do have standing, that they've got enough skin in the game. So that means that a fans action couldn't get kicked out now because of having insufficient involvement. So what's happening and what they're depriving Newcastle of will impact lots of people on Tyneside, from shopkeepers to bar owners to people that run taxi firms. There'll be 1 million people affected because Newcastle haven't got what they should have had. And when you can prove that back then, back in 2021 and back in 2020 when it was stopped illegally, that Newcastle United should have been A, allowed to do it, and B, introduce the sponsors, it opens a whole ballpark now for Newcastle to go forward. A lot of people get carried away. I've seen things just in the chat when I've just joined on. They're saying £1 billion from a ramp or for the socks and things like that. That's great, but I think Newcastle will typically do it commercially. They'll do it with a sense of decency and a sense of, if you listen to Neil and Mitch talk, and they'll say the Far East will stay quiet and then they'll act when they've got to act. But when they do it, they'll come like a ton of bricks. They've been patient, but I don't think they've had any choice really. A lot of people's been critical. A lot of people, I heard George did say that George had said that if you want proof that the Saudis are around, they're giving you proof, but a £200 million state training facility is, it's PSG standard and it's double Leicester. The stadium, when it comes, will be circa 2 billion. Tottenham's was 1 billion. So you've got to be patient. Them things don't happen overnight. But if the club, who we know factually been in contact with Man City and they're in cahoots, and call it what you want, they're friends, they're colleagues, the allies, they're with Man City at the minute. They'll have known all the way through this exactly what was going on. They'll have known an awful lot more. The problem with fans is, and that's what we all are, that's what our Wolves just want to be, is that we want sometimes to play out in public. We want the club to do a communication and tell all of us exactly what's going on. And in legal matters, when you do that, you tell the other hand how you're going to play the game. It's like literally playing 3-card brag, and you're sitting with a pile of 9s. You think he's only got a flush, and then you're telling people that you've got a pile. Well, it's ludicrous. It's stupid, and it's daft of us as fans to ask people to tell us more. What we've got to do is think we've got the world's richest owners. We've probably got the best team spirit in football at the minute. I think Trippier's comeback the other night was heartwarming, and you just see that, and you see the way we destroyed Arsenal, and I think they've got a problem with us as a club now. I don't think it's either way. Tomorrow I'm going down to Man City, and for the first time ever, I think we've got a chance. I'll take a draw now, but I think we've got a chance. But when you put all this together, like all of us fans now have got reason to believe, and the club has got us to compete again. So we actually do compete when we go out there. And when you put all this together with then the richest backers in the world, and you take the shackles off, and it was only a matter of time. Council's told me many times that these rules can't stick, these rules can't last, these rules won't get through. And you just got to wait, sit and wait patiently. And people press me, when will we find out? And people thought it might take into March to get the APT rules, but said if you get these rules the way you want them, you won't need the second case. So there's currently 3 cases running, and if this has come as we suspect, when all the detail is drawn up, you probably won't need APT2. But when they served the APT2, they said to the panel, the original panel, there you go. So if you don't give us a decision, what we want and what we know is lawful, that's the next case. And basically, you can't answer that. It's impossible to answer. APT2 tells them exactly what the law states and tells them how they should answer APT1. Within 3 days of that, you get the answer on the APT1 you're looking for. And if you're to believe everybody that slotted Man City through this case, they say Man City should be struck off, Man City and that. I look at people, I say, Jesus, you know, if you support Newcastle, you hope they get struck off. You're signing Newcastle down, because the only chance we've got of getting anywhere is by legalities coming to the front and lawfulness being borne out.
Yeah.
But Man City, you know, people said they're going to get relegated, they're going to do Rangers, they're going to go to the bottom, they're going to go to the National League. And you know, like, yes, they might have done things wrong. Yes, they might have played fire with fire at times when they felt they had to. But if it's unlawful, and if they were acting with an abuse of dominance and colluding amongst themselves, is anybody on this show tonight think that the red teams in the Premier League haven't been chatting to each other and haven't been playing each other's hands? It's obvious they have. You know, like a blind man can say that they have. So if that's been happening, and it's all, you know, can remember the statement, we don't need to have another Leicester City again. So what would they have been saying when Man City won theirs? And clearly, you're taking the family silver. You know, you've seen an owner, a recent owner, I'll not name him, coming into a large institutional ground in the Premier League, saying, I thought there was actually an arrangement in place where 6 clubs ran the show. He actually said that in public. And he's a billionaire. Billionaire tax exile who doesn't pay taxes but wants us to pay for his ground. And then he tells us he thought there was an arrangement in place. And I'm just sitting with my hands going, oh my God. Can you take a stance here? Can you tell us what arrangement you're referring to? And just shut up. Just listen. So these people have dug a lot of holes. And at the minute, they're suggesting that the Premier League's latest thing is they want to see all the telephones and all the mobiles of clubs in their run-up. I tell you something, I've been in these cases. I'd like to see the mobiles of the cartel in the run-up in Newcastle's takeover. I'll just have your WhatsApps for that period, if you don't mind, please. I'll just have them, and we'll just study them for a while. So it's all come home to roost. And if I come over as being a little bit smug tonight, it's because I'm extremely smug. I'm feeling like, you know, I could burst. I could just start laughing and pissing myself at the thought of people who keep the usual horseshit going and saying, you don't know what you're talking about. And you don't have to know, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to know the far end of the far in terms of the law to know what's illegal and what's not illegal. You don't have to be a great footballer to know that's their goal and this is our goal. It's all quite common sense when you look at it. But a lot of people get emotional and they sort of start posting on Twitter what they want to happen, and there's a lot of people on Twitter suffer a lot from this going through. I'm just pleased that all the people that's believed in Newcastle and believed in Man City as well, and now Aston Villa are thinking about serving papers. So you know that's quite a significant turn when you look at the table of richness. Now West Ham have admitted, third richest, have admitted that Newcastle have been badly dealt with. Forest and Everton is sitting. Honestly, don't you worry about how many American clubs is in there. Just think of how many clubs in there think they've got a chance and want to have a pop and want to compete, because all them people start voting for themselves. But if you go and watch the professional show and listen to Stu and Mitch, they'll tell you that the style of these people. I think of the Saudis like an oil tanker. You know, they take time turning around. They don't react quick. They do things probably slower than we would like at times. But when they move, and they only play to win. And they don't rate silver medals or bronze medals. They just think of winning. And you don't become the richest fund in the world by doing anything but winning. And these people will now have all the bullets. They'll have all the evidence. And I guess they're sitting there smugly thinking, what are we going to do with it and how are we going to go about it? And I think their tack will be to try and do it amicably first. And if that doesn't work, then it's, well, you made the rules, a bit like Live Golf did. So Live Golf were told they had no chance. Yeah. And I guess the Saudis just stood back and said, well, we'll see. We'll let somebody else judge that. I think it's the same now. I don't think it's a time now to get stupid and say, oh, we want to, £1 million for training kit and all that kind of crap. What you should do now is you should go out there and you should lodge your sponsorships at what we think they're commercially worth. So if you were selling St. Maxim tomorrow, he's worth more than what we got for him. He wasn't 20 odd million. If he's 20 odd million, Lloyd Kelly's 20 million, something's wrong in terms of value to the market. But I think we should cleverly go out and just let the water pass under the bridge, take some breath, look at the sponsorships. When you think there's like Noon and Seller, but there's a lot of airlines to come forward. There's Aramco and all those kind of people who we've spoken to people from Aramco, and they've said that there's a keenness to get involved. But I think we just need to stop telling the club what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Stop being frustrated at how quick this is happening and realise there's been shackles on these people. And the Saudis don't drop out of things. They don't not back people. They don't make rash choices. They don't buy something, then bin it and sell it and buy all these other clubs ahead of us, which you heard about. They get something, they stick with it. And if people block them, they find ways of unblocking it. And then when they get the say, they charge, and they go ahead. And I think we're in a hell of a position at the minute. We're in a cup final, and I think when I watched that Everton game of the night, I think we've got a cracking good chance of rattling them. But the second thing is that you've got an FA Cup that's more winnable than it's been for a long time. So that's another plot. And openly, I mean, yeah, we're going to be tight and we threadbare, but the football club has a great chance of getting the Champions League. I think they've got more of a chance of getting the Champions League than the first time because it's wide open. And I don't think that, I think they said who's stopping you. I would say Chelsea and Man City might be trying to nudge you into sixth. But when you look at them two, they're not the best. They're not the best, and they've got the hands full. So roll on tomorrow, roll on next month, and let's just enjoy being a fan, and let's have trust in the Saudi ownership and say, we can see now why you've sat back. It's an intelligent man that lets somebody else go out and do the fighting and do the scrapping. And when you're the best in the world, like Man City were, and all the flack they got, just imagine if Newcastle had started the legal process. Imagine how many people would have attacked us and said, you're a bunch of murderers, you're this. Think we get that now. And we keep the lowest court out of all, and we're the people who really sits back quietly. So I'd say, as Newcastle fans, just smile and just look up and just say, times are changing. And I think the Man City result, I don't think they'll get relegated, and I don't think they'll lose points. I'm sure they'll get some kind of knuckle wrap or fist, fine or whatever. But it'll be money under the couch to them. And I think Man City will come back to their greatness. And I think Newcastle will start climbing to theirs.
Okay, we will arrange a date to get Keith back on for a full show. Thank you for jumping on tonight, Keith. I don't want to keep you too long because I don't want to upset your last. But thanks for coming on, mate. We will look forward to seeing you soon, mate. We might even bring lookalikes back for that night.
Thanks to all you for it. I'm sorry that I come on and just talk 100 man an hour, but it's it's good you let us on, and take care of all of yourselves. All right.
See you soon, mate.
Yes,
take care.
Take care, pal.
Thank you.
It's exactly why we said when the Premier League got the client journalists to tell everybody what a terrible loss for Man City this was, and Masters and his mates were ribbing each other in the corner, and the Red Cartel were getting carried away. There was a rabbit off. It didn't sit right. It didn't feel right. And this is exactly why the understanding how things work and spending time listening to Keith over the last few years, bouncing things around with Steve and bouncing things around with Stu, there was a sting in the tail, and what a sting this is.
Absolutely. I've just sent you guys a little snippet there from the Daily Mail where it's got a little bit about the judgment. It said that the 18-page final award, which is seen by Mail Sport, states that in the first partial final award, it was declared that the APT rules and amended APT rules were unlawful in 3 respects. There now arises for decision the question whether those 3 aspects can be severed from the remaining ATP rules so that those remaining APT rules are valid and enforceable. The three respects in which the APT rules and amended APT rules were unlawful cannot be severed, with the result that the APT rules as a whole are void and unenforceable.
Yeah, and
Unenforceable.
unlawful.
Yeah, unenforceable. What's interesting in that also, if I can just find it, that apparently Masters has been talking to the clubs. It says that Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters made clubs aware of the situation in an email this afternoon. In it, he acknowledged that the previous rules, as a while, are void and unenforceable, but attempted to play down the development. The previous rules are no longer in place, he said, and new rules were voted into force. The league has previously told clubs that this decision was about the legal status on the previous APT rules and would not impact the operation of the new rules. That remains to be seen. Moss has added that the new rules remain in force and that clubs remain required to comply with them. But the rule has just told you they're not, and he still can't get it. It's like
whichever council provided the Premier League with the advice that they could pick and choose the rules that they amended to amend and keep the effectively the structure in place. One shot was shit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely terrible advice.
Yeah, and the other clubs must be screaming because it also says that in a further blow, which is unlikely to go down well across the competition, the Premier League may now have to foot not only its own legal bill, but also Manchester City's legal bill. The figure of both combined is thought to be close to £20 million.
Oh dear.
Now, this is just none of the above, however, is linked to the 115 charges levelled at City. So that still carries on. We know that. I mean, this was something completely different. But what we're seeing that it says the ramifications of this are massive, absolutely massive.
I tell you what does tie into the 115, 100, however many it is. A lot of those arguments that City have against charges are, this is how the rules were written at the time.
Yep.
This is our interpretation of those rules. What we've done fits within that interpretation.
Exactly.
So the one that stands out in my mind is the Mancini getting additional payments from, was it Mazda? One of the other companies associated with, in Abu Dhabi, associated with the owners of Man City. And the actual rule about contracts of managers just said a manager must have a clearly written contract. There's nothing about where the payment must come from and who must pay him and how he can be paid. It's just that he must have a clearly written contract.
Yeah.
Other rules saying that it has to come from the club and it can't come from third parties associated with the club were added later. And this is exactly, I think, what Man City are going back at and saying, well, you've seen what we've done and you've tried to amend the rules and now we are trying to catch you out on amended rules that weren't enforceable at the time that we did it.
Yeah.
And so it just shows you how vulnerable the Premier League are legally if the APT's already got torpedoed.
Yeah. It also says that it means that any deals that were rejected or reduced in value under the system, which operated between December 2021 and November 2024, could now be subject to hefty compensation claims. If a club believes its competitive performance was harmed by a decision made under the previous APT system, it could sue. Who do you sue, though? You sue the other 19 clubs, and then you come in on club number 1, you sue the 19, then you come in as club number 2, you sue that 19, you're suing the league, you're suing yourselves because you're members, you're shareholders, and they're suing each other. But this is the minefield that's been created. Everybody's now going to go through that minefield, tiptoe through it, and there's got to be some sort of peace terms have got to have to be. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into a free-for-all. It's going to be a nightmare. sad thing is, it could bring in the European Super League, which we started off talking about just a couple of minutes ago. You know?
What happens if the Premier League goes bankrupt?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
And watch how Brown Master's trousers will go if somebody mentions a legal sanction and not a financial sanction.
He's literally like Captain Smith on the Titanic at the minute. He really is. He literally
Absolutely.
is. And the Premier League's like, yes, go on, Joe. I mean, it's unfortunate you've come out and you've had to do what I do, which is sit back and listen. But yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating, isn't it? That all the things that we believe we've been held back over, all the things that we thought was a conspiracy, is actually just beautifully playing out in front of us. And we're the ones sat smiling on this podcast. I think if there was a podcast for Premier League chiefs and councils, I'm guessing it'd be a slightly different tone. So, it's like we've said, it's like the lads have said, it's like Keith's just said, we've said for a while, haven't we? Just let it play out. PIF had just sat there, let Man City do their thing. And actually, City aren't doing a great deal yet. They're kind of going through the process. They've tripped themselves up. And this is supposed to be the best league in the world. And this is supposed to be the greatest organisation in sport. It's an absolute shambles. It's a farce. And if this chief executive doesn't hand his cards in soon, he's an absolute lame duck. He's a dead man walking. He's going to send the game into chaos. It's going to send the finances of his organisation into chaos. And we're still going to win the Champions League. Who's a dickhead? Not us.
You know what they'll do, Joe? You know what they'll do? The Premier League next week will come out and say, you know what? We need to have an ombudsman. We need to have a governance of football.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to have somebody at the top that we can
blame. We need to have a regulator.
We need a black and white tax.
We need to have a regulator.
He's a clown. It's a sham. It's an absolute shambles. And I hope he does get the floor wiped with him. We've been held back long enough. Let's get the gloves off and let's get stuck into them.
Yeah, interesting times. The news that was breaking earlier on by the Times now being reported across the board. The Daily Mail is the other place that Steve Hasty has just retweeted. So
except, I believe, silence on Sky Sports.
Silence on Sky Sports. No surprise there. Too busy going on about Liverpool, I suppose, and other cartel teams. Okay, it is time to look ahead to our game tomorrow at our Oil Brothers, as somebody referred to it in the chat earlier. Manchester City, the Oil Derby, takes place tomorrow. Toon Stato gives us a little bit of an insight into what is coming up.
Hello everyone, happy birthday to King Kevin Keegan, 74 today, the legend. It's because of him that I became a Newcastle United supporter back in the 90s. Now, tomorrow a fitting tribute to his birthday, two of his former sides meet. Newcastle United away to Manchester City. What a dreadful record we have there. Not winning any of their last 20 games away in Manchester against them. Our last win came back in September 2000 when Alan Shearer scored the winning goal. Since then, only 2 draws and 18 defeats. Actually, at the Etihad, their new stadium, we have 15 consecutive defeats and we have not scored a goal in the last 5 games. By the way, winning 15 consecutive times at home against an opposition has happened only 3 times before in the English top flight. Everton against Fulham, Aston Villa against Sheffield United, and Manchester United against Luton. Manchester City have also scored in 32 consecutive games in the Premier League against Newcastle. This has also happened only 3 times before in the English top flight history, with 2 of the previous times also involving Newcastle United. Now, on a more positive note, Newcastle actually has won their last 6 away games in all competitions, including 4 consecutive away wins in the Premier League. Only under the birthday boy Kevin Keegan in 1994 we have done this previously, and let's see if we can make it 5 in a row for the first time in the Premier League history. When it comes to players, Jacob Murphy to Alexander Isak, this combination has resulted in 6 goals. The next most productive combination in the Premier League is between Savinho and Erling Haaland with 5 goals. Anthony Gordon scored 2 goals in the last 2 games against Man City. The last player to score 3 consecutive games against them was Ollie Watkins from Aston Villa more than 3 years ago. Let's see what happens tomorrow, and let's hope that finally we win there. Our only win coming back in the League Cup under Alan Pardew back in 2014, when Rwando Arans and Musa Sissoko scored the goals. How are the lads?
Thank you, Andre. Great stuff as always. Some great stats in there. Scunny Mag has got all the news if you are travelling to Manchester City.
Hey folks, Scunny Mag Paul here again. Another away day guide. This one's for Man City. If you're heading to the Etihad, this one's for you. Okay, so the Etihad. For those arriving on train, Manchester Piccadilly is the station you're most likely to be using. If you are coming on the trains and using public transport, there is a tram route out to the stadium. It's the light blue line out towards Ashton-under-Lyne. And as a visiting fan, you'll be looking to get off at the Velo Park stop, which is nearest the away end. If you're driving in, there is parking around the stadium. There is a little gem just across the road from the south stand. There's a little sort of tiny alleyway and a gate to the back of a school field. Now, they open that field up to use it as a car park on match days, and it helps raise valuable funds. It's pay on the gate. You what 3 words for that little side street to find the school car park is Hops Limp Cars. And then once you're in and settled, you'll want to find some pubs. The Piccadilly Tavern is always popular. It's set up for away fans. You come out of the station, follow the building round, keep it on your right, and head down where you'll see all your fans inside and outside the pub. And Table Skip Police will find you on the pavement outside that one. And then just recently I've discovered the Crown and Anchor. I actually stayed there. It's a budget hotel as well, but it's a decent little pub downstairs. There was loads of our fans in there and loads of our fans staying there, but it's actually en route between the city and the train station and the Etihad if you do decide to walk out that way. Adults Scary Today will help you get to that one. And then further up closer to the ground, you've got the Townley, which is in the estate to the south of the stadium. They are known to take visiting supporters, but I wouldn't say it's a massive destination pub for away fans, but you're likely to be able to get in and get a drink there if there's just a few of you and you're heading up to the game. Echo Pound's Shock will help you get to that one. So when you are ready to head up to the ground, the visiting turnstiles are on the southeast corner near the chip shop and in between the Resurrection car park and the Velo Park tram stop. You want to be in the rough area of Eggs Makes Things, and once you get there you'll see where to go. Thanks for listening. I've been Paul. Sing your hearts out, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.
And if you want to bet sensibly, there's only one person to give you the advice on how to do it. Tune tipster, over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, bet sensibly. I'm not sure about that tomorrow. This could be anything, couldn't it? Unsurprisingly, Manchester City remain the clear favourites. They're 19-20, just under odds on to win the game. The draw is a very tempting 3-1. And if you think this is Newcastle's year, we are 12-5, so roughly 2.5-1 to win the game tomorrow. In terms of the goal scorers, there's absolutely no surprise. Of course, there are 2 clear favourites to score any time in the game, Erling Haaland and our very own Alex Isak. Mamouche, Man City's new wide player, he's 2-1. Anthony Gordon's 3-1. Phil Foden, 11-5. Jacob Murphy, 4-1. John Stones at the back post, 10-1. And our very own Big Dan Burn is 12-1 to finally sort his 50 pence head out at the back post. Bookies then kind of just dropped the pen, I think. Man City 1-0, Man City 2-0, and Man City 3-1 is all 11-1. However, 1-0 Newcastle is 16-1. 2-0 Newcastle is 22-1, and that's the same for the 3-1. But Mr. Penman's just texted me and said if you put your bet on 2 weeks ago, he's on 3-1 at 40-1 tomorrow. But it is roughly 22-1 if you put it on this weekend. 0-0, 20-1, 1-1, 7-1, and 2-2 Thriller is 10-1. Bruno Guimaraes, yellow card, 15-8, and Ilkay Gundogan is 11-4, if you think there'll be a bit of a scrap in the middle. And William Hill, although the bookmakers are available, I have to say, William Hill have got some decent specials on the game tomorrow. 7-2, if you think Haaland and Isak will both score in the game. And if you think Newcastle will win either 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1, you can have 6-1 for that. So yeah, it could go either way. I'm feeling pretty confident, and especially with the APT news, I might have 20 quid on that special tomorrow. But please bet responsibly, look after your money, and up the mags.
Good stuff. Thank you, mate. As we know, Eddie Howe is also very tentative and giving information out, but we did get a few bits and bobs from him today. Anthony Gordon has trained all week, so he's fine. Dan Byrne will return tomorrow. He's okay. Hasn't had a full week's training, but no serious after effects. Sven Botman will not be risked. Harvey Barnes is still out, not far away, we're led to believe. No real news on Joe Linton that I picked up today. Jamal Lascelles still out as well. If Callum Wilson plays tomorrow, it'll be his 100th Premier League game for Newcastle United. And you got all the stats from Stato. It's a horrendous place. We haven't scored down there now. I mean, we took 2 points from a possible 57, but we haven't scored since September 2018 in the Premier League. DeAndre Yedlin was the last person to score at the Etihad. That's 510 minutes ago, which is 8.5 hours. It's got to turn sometime, and this seems to be the season where we are very capable of doing that. In all competitions, Newcastle have won 6 successive matches away from Gallagher going into this game. It's their best run of form since managing 7 in a row on the road back in the days of Kevin Keegan in 1984. As for Man City, there's doubts over Nathan Ake, Jeremy Doku, Nico Gonzalez and Edison. Of course, City lost the home leg of the Champions League playoff against Real Madrid by 3-2 on Tuesday. They've got the second meeting at the Bernabeu on Wednesday. Will that come into their thoughts with regards to their team selection? We will wait and see. Jack Grealish and Manuel Akanji did pick up knocks and were forced off against Real Madrid. I'd imagine they'll both be okay to play though, but we will wait and see. Referees Andy Madley, third game involving Newcastle this season. He was involved in the 3-3 home draw with Liverpool. Let's hope if Newcastle's on the way through and it's 3-3 this time, he lets Isak score the goal. And he was also involved in the 2-1 win at Spurs. VAR is obviously involved as it's a Premier League game. John Brooks, he's in charge. It's the second VAR shift this month involving us. The last one was the Carabao Cup home win over over Arsenal when Alexander Isak's opener was ruled out due to that marginal offside call. No UK coverage because it's 3 o'clock kickoff. All 3,000 away tickets have been sold. Let's hope Eddie gets that record equal and 5th successive Premier League away win. What do the lads think? Well, we'll go to Mitch first. Mitch, your feelings on this game, mate?
You know what? I'm absolutely good at that. None of Scunny Mag's what 3 words was associated party transactions. But I've never seen a Man City team under Pep looking this vulnerable. And they're mentally fragile. I watched that Champions League game through the week and they were gone. Second half, they were gone. They're losing players. Yes, they've bought in January. One of them didn't get off to the greatest start in the world, and now he's almost looks like he's got to play. There's elements of that team that I don't think we'll have a better chance of getting stuck into them and rattling their cages than right now. And if we can go with the level of attitude and fight that we've shown against Arsenal, against Birmingham in the Cup even, we're going to more than give them a game. It's a genuine opportunity to not just break a hoodoo, but to even potentially make a statement. I watched City against Arsenal, who Arsenal went on about the 5 goals, but City played themselves into bother. And if they want to play that kind of game against us, Isaac and Gordon will have a field day. Yeah. So I'd be interested to see how they turn out mentally. I'd be amazed if they don't have the return leg against Madrid on their mind. They've lost players through injury. Akanji, I was seeing City fans talking about him being out as a result and bemoaning the lack of an option at right fullback. So again, that could be Gordon's opportunity if he's fit. So I go with probably more hope than I've ever seen us go to Man City with, because I do think that they had to get rattled and have a go at. And we've proved we can do that.
Okay, As Tom says, what does the dice say?
What does the dice say? And the dice says 1-1.
I wouldn't be upset with that. What do you reckon, Mitch?
I was actually going to say 1-1 myself as well. I would take a draw now. But I do think we've got an opportunity to make a statement.
Yeah, me too. Certainly, I've gone for a 2-1 win on the show with Gibbo yesterday. I think Newcastle will just edge it. I am confident this is our year to beat Man City away. George, what are you feeling with this game?
Well, I'm Mr. Optimistic always with Newcastle United. But I agree with you. I think if we're going to do it, this is a good time to do it. And he's absolutely right. The Real Madrid game that just fell apart. It was visible and exaggerated for me afterwards when there was that little video clip of Pep getting upset with the reporter and actually going to strike the reporter. He was so upset. So that tells you what the febrile sort of atmosphere there's in that dressing room and club at the moment. If we can't make use of that, we never will. I'm confident that we give it a go and have a good chance of getting something out of the game. In fact, I'm certain we will. And I would go with the same score as you, Steve. 2-1 is what I'd go for.
Okay, Joseph, what's your feelings? You were pretty confident.
Yeah, well, you've got to be, Steve, at the minute, haven't you? And I know me being cautious kind of gets me in bother sometimes, but I agree with Neil. I mean, there's something quite sad, but you've got to be a City fan. The football that they've played, the brand of football, the way Guardiola's almost changed the way we all play and think about football over the past 4 or 5 years, whatever. But they're really, really struggling. They are really, really struggling. And whether it is physically, there's injuries starting to build up. Everything's gone really, really well for Pep, hasn't it, until this season? And for whatever reason, whether that's Rodri, whether it's, an aging squad, whatever it was, or the off-field matters kind of clouding things, they're not the Man City of 3 years ago. They still have, though, Erling Haaland, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, et al. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be a stroll in the park, but I agree with Neil that there's an optimism for this game now. We didn't give ourselves much hope in certain away fixtures this season, and we've gone there and we've proved that we can beat the teams, that sit in and around us. Great opportunity to just park the League Cup a little bit, because I do think we had that in our mind when we played Fulham. So, we're in the final, but that's a month away. Let's start concentrating on the Champions League, and how better to cement your Champions League claim than to beat the teams that you're going up against. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it tomorrow. I don't think it'll be, a 3-4-0 walk away. I'm not that daft, but I would have took a 1-1, but I would absolutely advocate we'll win at least 1-0 tomorrow. I'm confident.
Steve?
You know what? I've never seen a team disintegrate in the manner that City have in a season due to the loss of what really was one player, and that was Rodri. From the moment he got injured, that team seemed to just drop their heads like I've never experienced before. And so did the manager. And it's quite worrying. It's quite concerning. I know that they've got an aging squad, and I know that things move on in football and things tend to be cyclical. But this City team is not a shadow on the City team that won the league last season. It's not a shadow on the City team that won the league the previous 3 either. They're crying. Yes, Akanji's out for 10 weeks now. He's had an operation. Grealish is not the player because for some reason Guardiola hasn't played him in the manner that we know Grealish can play, because he hasn't allowed him. I just don't know what's going on in Guardiola's head, to be perfectly honest. But you know what? I shouldn't be too worried about Man City. I'm more concerned with Newcastle United. 7 wins in the last 9 games. As we said, six away wins on the trot. Absolutely fantastic. And clubs are talking about injuries, Steve. We're hearing it all the time about. We're hearing Arsenal crying about injuries. We're hearing Tottenham. Tottenham in such a bad state. But I look at our list, and this season we've had Lascelles out, we've had Botman out, and only come back and played 3 games. We've had Trippier out for spells. We've had Wilson out all season. Miley out all season. We've had Barnes out for the last 6 or 7 weeks. We had Pope injured. We've got Joe Linton out at the minute. We had Kraft out for 8 or 9 weeks. We had Matt Target out. We lost Almiron and Kelly in January. You know, these are massive, massive things for Newcastle United to have to cope with. And Eddie Howe has done it tremendously, and the squad have done it tremendously. And the way that he's blended the midfield with Bruno and Tonali, the way he's come up with a new formation, a new settlement, the way that the defenders have come in and cope, the young lads. You know, we can't praise Newcastle United enough. We can't praise Eddie Howe and his coaching staff enough. And let's add to that the fact that we lost Minty and Anderson before the season even started because of profit and sustainability rules, which are now being proved under APT or you know, have cost us. Yeah, we've got, you know, Burns going to be fit tomorrow. That's good. Hotman's going to be out. I think that's precautionary as much as anything. But we go into this game full of confidence. I can see us coming away with a 2-0 win because, let's face it, there's never a better time to go to Man City. We get on the front foot, and as you said earlier, somebody mentioned, if they defend or try to defend like they did against Arsenal, we can rip them a new one. Absolutely. So I'm very confident that we can go there. We play to our strength. We can come away with 3 points.
Yeah, lots of confidence on here, and it's not surprising. Newcastle United have been on a great run this season, and could only get better this season. That's there's no doubt about that. Still got one or two little things to get through. We haven't had one of these for a while, so if you do have a day I met, please send it to our email, nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Oh, Christ, I'll have to change the email. The day I met, we're asking you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present. Here we go. Here you go for the day I met your old mate and honorary, even though he's not come out to watch a game with us yet, San Diego mag Warren Barton. We both lived in San Diego for 15 years, but it took us both going to a Premier League fan fest in Chicago to finally meet. Club put on an event at the Green Post, home of the Toon Army, Chicago, and Warren was a good sport. He watched the match with us the next day, did a Q&A, and generally gave everyone the time of day. He was a great ambassador for the club. Thank you very much. That's great. Great photo, by the way, as well. Simon in San Diego has sent us that in. A big viewer of the show. Often has to get up a little bit later. Doesn't always get a tune in live, but thank you for sending us that over, mate. And a big thank you to Geordie Lee as well for sending this. He bumped into Joe Allen. I was with Joe today. I always meet Joe on a Friday. We had a good get together. We had a cracking night in Hartlepool last night. He did a up close and personal show last night. And it went very well. He talked very bravely about his the issues that he's had over the last year and a half. But it was a great night. Raised a lot of money for charity. And Joe, great bloke, great fella. And looking forward to doing a show with him tomorrow, 12:30 till 1:30, live on NUFC Matters. Looking ahead to the game. I am busy pre-recording shows with Joe, with George as well. We're getting some more of those when the day's show's done. I will be doing another one of those with George for May, when I've got a busy schedule and there won't be as many live shows. So thank you for sending them in. And if you've got one, send it at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. I've got time for one more question because we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. And keep your answers quite short, lads, because I don't want you to do overtime. Kurt Johnson says, question for the lads. If we win the Carabao Cup, would you be bothered about our position in the league and the outcome of the FA Cup? Personally, the Carabao Cup will do for me. I can tell you what George's answer will be. It'll involve greedy little duck. Those are his three what 3 words. So we'll be able to save time on George's by going to George first. George, would you be happy with just the Carabao Cup, mate?
Get away, Noah. You said it for us, greedy little duck. That's me. If it's in sight and Newcastle's got a chance of winning it, go for it. For God's sake, go for it. I mean, we all hail the cup wins in the 50s. What people that weren't there forget is particularly the 55 team were charged with throwing the league away to get to the cup final. They could have won the first division and they threw it away from the cup final because all the money was in the cup final. Now, for God's sake, no, we don't want any of that. Greedy little duck, win the lot.
Neil?
I think the first challenge would be finding where I am if we do win it. And probably being a shipment container in Hong Kong or something like that. But other than that, I would want us to take advantage of the hard work we've put in every competition and finished as best as we can in every competition. And if that means winning 2 cups, bring it on.
It's opening up, Joe, isn't it? The FA Cup, certainly. I mean, Newcastle's second favourites, I think, midweek when I looked. But
yeah, they are.
Would you settle for just the Carabao?
Yes. Yeah, I would. Yeah, but it'd be nice to win everything, wouldn't it? We're the only team who can still do the treble or something, aren't we? Which imagine that. Yeah, imagine that. But I won't be a greedy little duck just for this season, George. I might be next season. I just want us to open the door. And I agree with Neil. If we're upside down in the fountain, I don't know where we'll be, but I can't imagine what it's going to be like. But yeah, I will take the Carabao Cup for now, and then I'll be greedy at the start of next season when we've spent 300 billion on our squad.
Steve?
Start every season, and at that point, it's like you go into the competition to win it. And as the season goes on, yes, you may slip in the league, but as far as I'm concerned, you enter every competition to win that competition, and that carries on no matter what happens. So I'm going to be a greedy little duck, and I want the FA Cup. I want at least top 4, because I suppose you can turn around and say top 4 is like a victory. It is like a massive win, and I want the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup.
Yeah,
I knew when I painted the rattle, something special was going to happen.
Exactly, George.
It is. It's just a funny old season. It really is. Newcastle United in a prime position. Only really injuries can affect. But even then, injuries to key players, Newcastle can still find a way. And I managed to keep a hold of me tweet. Remember, lads, that my prediction might not have been right for the other teams, but I did have at the start of the season Newcastle finishing 3rd, and Newcastle's first domestic trophy since 1955 will be the FA Cup. And don't forget, the first person to comment underneath was Melly Barnes, Manchester United fan with 2 laughing emojis. So we will see, Melly. We will see. It's been an interesting season so far. Nothing's won on the 14th of February. But we're getting closer, lads. We're getting closer. We'll finish off with a little bit of Elliot. Give it to me, she said. I'm so wet. Give it to me now. No chance, I said. Get your own umbrella.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Just say, Steve, can we just say, we talked at the start of the programme, and we said thank you to everybody and how we love meeting them. I think they owe us a big thanks as well, because we've managed to get through the entire 2 hours without mentioning ticketing.
I was going to say the same. Well done, Steve. You read my mind. We'll finish off with Mark Byers, who seems to be competing with me. I did do my very first live poetry show yesterday. I did a half-an-hour show of my own poems in front of a sellout crowd. Thank you to everybody who came. Had a great day. Thanks to Dave, especially for coming along and being my stooge. But went very well. I will definitely do one again. Mark has written one. Roses are red, violets are blue. Ha ha ha, masters. Adios and F you. Great place to leave it. 1,000 of you watching on X, please jump over on X onto YouTube. find NUFC Matters and just hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week, 1,600 of you watching. We never take it for granted. The figures have been excellent again this month as well. 2.2 million views, individual views again last month. Thank you for your support. We do it for you guys, and we enjoy doing it. We will be back tomorrow, 12:30 with Joe Allen, and then back with the professionals slightly later, 6 o'clock or 7:30 on Sunday because of the Spurs Man U game. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend and enjoy the football.
Away the lads.
You guys are all-